अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मैं हूँ हैना हुसैन। हमारा सेकंड सेगमेंट फ्रॉम ऑरलैंडो लाउंज TvOneUSA। हमारा सेकंड सेगमेंट है आज कंटिन्यू ऑन रिलेशनशिप। तो थोड़ा सा रिकैप करेंगे कि लास्ट एपिसोड आपके फीडबैक्स आए, आपने रियली एंजॉय किया। और एक टिप हमारे गुरु जो रिलेशनशिप गुरु हैं नवीद भट्टी जिन्होंने शेयर किया था, लिसनिंग, वो आप लोग प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं। बिकॉज कम्युनिकेशन में आपको पता है रिलेशनशिप में कम्युनिकेशन नंबर 1 है। और अगर आप सुन नहीं रहे हैं और प्रेजेंट नहीं हैं तो आपकी रिलेशनशिप अफेक्ट हो रही है। और सो प्रैक्टिस लिसनिंग, दैट वाज द टूल दैट वाज टॉट लास्ट सेशन। अब आज के सेशन में हम लोग क्या टॉपिक, हॉट टॉपिक ला रहे हैं जो कि हम दोनों शेयर करेंगे, इज अफेक्शन एंड इंटीमेसी। देखिए, सबको प्यार मोहब्बत चाहिए, यू नो, दैट्स अ बेसिक नीड, लव एंड अफेक्शन। हम अपनी जिंदगी में डू वी फील लव्ड, हाउ डू वी इम्प्रूव लव, हाउ डू वी लव अदर पीपल, यू नो, इट्स ऑल अबाउट लव। तो अब मैं नवीद से कहूंगी कि प्लीज शेयर करें।
श्योर। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ये टॉपिक जो है ना, इट्स स्पेशली हमारे कल्चर में, इट्स सच एन एम्बैरेसिंग टॉपिक टू टॉक अबाउट. I can feel, I think because of you cannot tell I'm blushing, but I'm already blushing just thinking about कि मैंने ये बात कैसे करूँगा. How can I talk to my uncles and aunties out there about love and affection? You know, I'm 43 years old and I still have a hard time sometimes talking to my mother about this topic, although this is something everyone deals with. You know, I just remember this story just when we were young. जब हम पहले यहाँ पे आए थे तो वो एक शो आती थी टीवी पे, लव बोट. तो आपको पता है पाकिस्तान में तो वो सारी जो शोज जो होते हैं वो एडिट करके दिखाते हैं. यू नो, इवन वो चिप्स पेट्रोल जो दिखाते थे, कोई सीन में उनमें से वो कट कर देते, राइट? दे यूज्ड टू जस्ट कट इट आउट बिकॉज यू कैन नॉट शो दिस एंड दैट एंड दैट.
लव एंड अफेक्शन तो दिखा ही नहीं
सकते. नहीं,
मार पाट दिखा दो.
जी, मेरी बिलीफ सिस्टम यही थी कि पाकिस्तानी जो हैं, हमारी कल्चर, दे डोंट हैव एनी अफेक्शन. मैंने तो नहीं कभी देखा अम्मी और अब्बी ऐसे कोई ऐसे बिहेवियर उनके, तो वो they did not even hold hands.
Yeah, they wouldn't even sit on the same couch. Yeah, साथ में नहीं बैठ सकते पहले ज़माने में.
और अगर वो शो लगी होती तो, yeah, here I remember in South Florida growing up, तो if that show was on and some hanky panky अगर कोई शुरू हो जाती स्क्रीन पे, God forbid, तो हम तो कमरे से निकल आते थे.
That's true.
We could not even be in the same room.
Yeah.
So, you know, the funny thing is, even the American culture, that used to be that's how it was back in the 40s and 50s, not that long time ago. तो ये phenomenon जो है, ये जो topic जो है, to talk about affection and intimacy, there is no platform. So Henna and I have really come together, we've made a partnership in really making this conversation, this topic available, because where else can you go to talk about how to not only maintain intimacy and affection, because शुरू में तो जी honeymoon period होता है. You know, सबका तो first year, मेरे साथ हुआ है. You know, first year, second year, third year is pretty romantic. But that romance and the changes that happen with our bodies and with other events in our life, all sorts of things.
So, Naveed, here's the question. So we all go through that honeymoon phase. It's called, you know, after you get everything about that person seems so loving. You can't wait to spend so much time with that person. But after a while, that same person becomes annoying and you just can't wait to get away from them.
Yes.
तो ये बताएं कि honeymoon period over क्यों जाता है? Why can't we live the rest of our life in that honeymoon period?
Perfect. Okay, I can definitely give some answers to this, okay? First of all, you're right. शुरू में ऐसे होता है कि you talk like, oh, they know me so well, they know what I'm going to say before I can say it, they finish my sentence. ठीक है? फिर थोड़ी देर बाद, right? All of a sudden that changes to, you don't know what I'm about to say. Why are you saying that you know what I'm going to say? You don't know me.
Yeah.
But you don't know me शुरू हो जाता है. After about 3, 4, 5 years, maybe longer if you're lucky.
I would say less, a year. I'd give it a year.
Yeah, that's about right. So how to maintain that, one of the major things that you have to do is you have to give up something. What do I mean? मतलब, you have to let go something. something that you hold, just say this is true, just say this is a formula. Relationships are not a formula. It's not X plus Y equals Z. Men, haven't you noticed with your wife, you cannot predict how she is one day to the next day. And same with women, depending on how our day went at work or whatever we're dealing with in our lives, in our work lives and everything else, you have no idea. You cannot possibly predict every situation. So first is giving up that you already know, that you have to know everything. See, Bushra and I, we made a promise to each other that I promised not to actually know her, which sounds kind of like a weird promise, you know?
Curiosity, building the curiosity
Exactly.
in the relationship that
Exactly.
keeps going.
हाँ, जैसे जब हम young होते हैं, बच्चे होते हैं, I have Azad and Alam are my two young boys. They're 7 and 10 years old. तो Azad जो है वो वाकई Azad है. That's we named him Azad, and he's just a free person. He asks questions all the time. अगर आप सोचें, if you go back and think about your relationship with your spouse, when was the last time you interviewed your wife, your partner? When was the last time you asked her about preferences? I have a funny story. For Valentine's Day, recently, I bought my wife flowers. Do you know for the first time in 20 years, she finally told me, I hate flowers. I was heartbroken, but I was upset. But हमारी argument हुई the next day. In front of my mother, I was like, she does not appreciate I did the flowers in the middle of the night, 11 बजे मैं लेके आया हूँ वहाँ से, blah, 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 blah. I was like, and she doesn't like flowers. She does not appreciate me. I was so upset. But then she said, then finally I calmed down and I asked her, how come you don't like flowers? She said, because flowers, when you cut them off the bush, वो मर रहे होते हैं. तो मरी हुई वो जो चीज़ जो मर रही है, वो वेस्ट में डाल के मेरे सामने क्यों रखी है? I never thought that she would be thinking that. I could never imagine that flowers would represent that. See, this is a simple thing. We don't ask. How come I didn't ask, what do you really want for Valentine's Day? How come? You know why? Because I stopped being curious.
That's right. So, in one of my episodes that I don't know you've watched previously, I talked about the 5 love languages. We all have different languages that tells us that the person loves us or not. So my language is quality time, someone's language is present, gifts, act of service. So find out what is your spouse's love language so you can speak that language instead of bringing a gift that they do not appreciate. They maybe just want to spend quality time with you, and that probably means a lot more to them.
Yes.
So, and I want to really bring back this scenario. What is the difference between when you get married, everything in your life stayed the same, right? But you got married and everything was rosy and honeymoon, and you went to Europe with that person and you could not wait to spend more day and night with this person. Love, intimacy, affection. What happens after a few months or a year is the state of mind. You changed the state of your mind. So all of a sudden, you got married, you changed the state of your mind and started viewing this person differently. Then after a while, you got things back to normal, same work, home, duty, and you went back to your old self, and the same person, same scenario doesn't seem so intimate anymore. What do you think about that?
Yeah. The problem is that I think we expect the other person to stay the same the entire time. And I think that's we really mess things up when we assume, the preferences that you started with are going to be the same preferences in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and they don't stay the same. Yeah. They don't. And how would you ever know what the person is thinking unless you actually investigate, find out, get curious, ask them, have these kinds of conversations with them about what they really want or what they really dislike. So you'd be surprised.
But people are afraid to have these conversations. We have this fear that, oh my God, I had this fear that if I address my issues with my spouse, it's going to go from bad to worse. That is the fear in our mind that, oh my God, if I address, it's going to go from bad to worse. How do you get over that?
Yeah, here's a very simple way. Okay, it's you have to understand one thing, which is that this fear that you have about addressing issues where you think you might upset the other person, that you are not the only person in the relationship that has those fears. Guess what? They are just as afraid of you coming to them to talk about this thing. And they already know you're thinking it. The joke is, and I'm sure everyone's experienced this, and I'm sure you've had a moment where you brought something to discuss and they already were thinking about it. They already knew this was something that was on their mind and that they knew you were bothered by it. And so our fear, we let our fear stop us. And the definition of courage is having the fear and acting anyway.
The fear and acting. But what do you do? A lot of people come to me and say, you know what? I want to talk, but he doesn't want to talk, or she doesn't want to talk. So what do you do if one spouse is withdrawn? Like I used to be, you know what? He's not doing the things I want. I'm going to be withdrawn. I don't want to talk to him, push him out of, So what do you do when one spouse doesn't want to address the problem or the issue that's going on in our relationship and our intimate life? Because you know what? We are someone outside, and inside we are totally different. We're not getting what we want, and then we act outside. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so two things. Number one, first, you have to stop assigning fault and blame in order to shame and guilt the other person.
Right.
That you have to stop right away.
I used to do that all the time.
Blame. We're always pointing the finger at the other person. And like I said, if you caught the last segment, the myth of 50-50 is just untrue. Now, you asked me for an answer to something, and the answer that I have for people, most people will reject, and they don't like the answer that I have because it's uncomfortable and it's inconvenient. But here's the answer. If you want the answer to how to have a successful relationship every time and consistently, and how to deal with this situation that Henna brought up, the only place that you can stand where you will make any kind of difference is taking 100% responsibility. 100 and 0. Even in the case where you're like, oh, they're withdrawn, how can I make them engaged in this conversation? You have to look at yourself and say, why is this person withdrawn with me?
Right.
What am I doing? What am I not doing? And you have to acknowledge that with them and say, look, just by saying, hey, if it was you and I, for instance, Henna, and I said, Henna, I've noticed that I want to talk to you about something, but I think that you're just going to be withdrawn. And I apologize for judging you that way and using that judgment to not even start the conversation. How dare I do? I'm sorry that I did that. Our friendship means a lot more than that.
Wow.
And you can just be authentic that that's what you were thinking.
So that is amazing, Naveed. So really, to recap, is when things are not going right in our relationship, whether it is, in that bedroom situation, that ask yourself, where are you taking responsibility in that situation? What are you responsible? Because we are all 100% responsible, as Naveed said, of our own choices, of our own situation. So instead of blaming, and I used to start the conversation, started blaming him, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, this is how you talk to me. The minute you blame the person, they get offensive and defensive, and they're going to stop and shut off. So instead of doing that, Naveed is saying that start acknowledging, start taking responsibility where you can take responsibility in the relationship. Then the other person will be open and not feel threatened in the conversation. Am I right?
That's perfect. I love that the last part that you said, that threat. That's what we're trying to take care of. That's what we're trying to manage. They're just feeling threatened. That's a big part of why people withdraw. And then I have one very key thing about intimacy for men especially. So if I could speak to the men for a moment, because I think ladies are often I find very intellectual and very curious about finding out about intimacy and affection. Men, not so much. They look about this deep into things. And it's very simple. Women and men, we think very differently about intimacy and affection. I know you know this. But one thing that I can say to men is, start to look to see how much of your partner's mood depends on the overall environment of the relationship. What do I mean? Are your finances in order? If there are financial stresses in the relationship and that you have not addressed, I'm not saying address them with money in the bank. I'm saying, have you talked about the financial stress? Just having that conversation puts them at ease because they do worry about it. And that's just from my own personal experience. I know that my wife, Bushra, she's always thinking about all sorts of things. She's so up here in her head that how can we be available for each other if we're thinking about 10 other things? And if you think men have an overactive imagination, women, I think, tend to even have more so.
I feel have a lot more because now we are also working outside the home.
Yes.
So we have double responsibility, double stress, and so we feel more pressured now that we have to perform outside the home and inside the home and the kids. Even if you could be an astronaut, a physician, when you come home as a female, you still have to be the mother, you still have to be the wife, you still have to be the cook. So those responsibility becomes overbearing. And then we cannot give ourselves because we're spent.
Yes.
I'm spent. I cannot give my husband who comes home that loving and energetic and it's all about you and I just want to be there for you because there was so much other I took on.
Yes.
But what Naveed is really saying that regardless of all the choices we've made, number one, stop blaming the other person. Because the minute you blame the other person for your problems, they're going to shut down. The conversation is not going anywhere. So stop blaming and start acknowledging the other person. The minute you acknowledge your spouse, your kids, they're going to be ready and open to listen to what you have to say, to your needs. Because everything starts here, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give us one nugget before we end our show and what our next topic is also going to be about. And Naveed and I are also doing a workshop to help, no matter what area of relationship is coming in Orlando, your city, November 2nd and 3rd in Orlando. And we'll share in detail later, but give us one nugget for the audience before we go.
Sure. So all communication that I would say is powerful begins with honest communication. Now the next step, because you probably knew that too, honesty is the best policy, sure. However, the next part is rarely said, which is you need to be honest about what you've been dishonest about. So that's the first place of vulnerability, and it really takes something. Swallowing your pride, again, especially for us men, swallowing your pride. There really is a double standard for men. If we come home from work and we do the dishes that night, we're celebrated. Oh, thank you. Or we expect didn't you see I did the dishes? But when women do the taxes you do other, we don't appreciate that. So being honest about where you've been dishonest. If you were angry, admit it. Admit it. Show some humility. Yeah.
So with that, we're going to recap that everything, if your relationships are not in order, nothing will work. So to work on your relationship, we've got our next session coming. Next segment on our social segment is on conflict resolution. So last time we talked about practice listening. This time, start acknowledging your partner and stop blaming and start acknowledging and really be you, your authentic self, and see how it goes. Practice that.
Yep.
And we'll talk about more solutions on conflict resolutions in our next segment. So watch us, give us feedback on Orlando Lounge, and thank you, Naveed, for coming again, and keep watching.
All right, see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.